Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is going to be around connected workflows for those in the field in Autodesk Build. So before we jump into the webinar, I'm just going to go through a little bit about A2K. So A2K plays a vital role in helping our customers reach their full potential by delivering complete technology solutions and support services such as consulting with custom advanced training, upskilling, and project-based assistance, and also through education with our scheduled fundamentals trainings, webinars, and workshops. So why A2K? So there's some good reasons there on the screen. Amongst the many to work with us, but we have A2K has a fairly large footprint throughout Australia and New Zealand and into Asia as well, and globally now we are partnering with companies around the world, and that's only growing as we go on as well. So a lot of experience there. The team brings a lot of experience to the table. We also partner with major software and hardware vendors, including obviously Autodesk, as well as Microsoft and HP, amongst other major vendors as well. And lastly, our customer commitment. Again, we are always striving to exceed our customer expectations and understandings of their challenges, and we believe that we are delivering solutions, the right solutions, through this experience and innovation. Alrighty. So let's jump into today's webinar. Today we're going to run through an overview of the ACC, the Autodesk Construction Cloud, and mainly some of the features of Autodesk Build that connect workflows from the office to the field. Okay. If there are any questions, guys, please, as usual, feel free to type into the Q&A question and answer window on the panel there. I'll make some time at the end briefly to answer any that come through as well. So in terms of what we're going to run through today as well, it is important to just quickly note that some of the features that I'm going to run through are in various states of beta testing. There are just a few ones in there in the mix. So just be aware of that, and that the development of these tools are ongoing and frequent, as I'm sure you guys are aware. It's the construction cloud and this technology and these tools are moving, quite rapidly, and being developed, monthly in updates, if not more. Okay, at this stage. So it's what I would just say is that it's great that you jumped on this webinar today. It's important, or it's a good idea to continue to join these sorts of webinars, moving forward, to keep up with these advancements. The other thing that is also worth mentioning is that some of the tools that I'm going to show you today or talk about today may not be visible in your own projects. Okay, and that's just simply because it can depend upon what has actually been activated, what tools and what areas of Build have been activated and enabled within your specific project. So just keep that in mind, be aware of that as well. But with that being said, let's dive into the webinar. Okay, so firstly, challenges in construction. So all of you are going to be aware of these. I don't need to go into too much detail here. We're all acutely aware of, things like thin margins and schedules, data silos, which, we've talked about for many years, but, is still a major problem today, as we speak on many projects globally. Data not being shared, having to be reworked, having to be duplicated, not being on the same platform. So still a major problem that's trying to be tackled and addressed. And hopefully we can talk a bit about that and address some of those areas today. And as well as labor shortages, distributed teams, and uncertainty as to how this technology is going to keep changing, and how even construction projects as a whole, in terms of, aside from the technology, how things are being delivered. Okay, so these are some of the challenges, obviously. What we want to talk about today is overcoming these challenges. So on the screen there is obviously some of the areas that that Autodesk Build, specifically within the Construction Cloud, is trying to answer, and has answered quite well, and is continuing to answer with the development of the tools. Things like increased collaboration and and single source of truth. In other words, keeping your data a master area that's not duplicated or reworked. Okay, being able to access that same information depending on where you are and what devices you're using, etc. Connecting 2D to 3D experience, another major area there. And then improved data accuracy, standardization, and digitization. So these are some of the things that I want to talk about today. So the value of build, I guess the key word here is connected, right? This is what we're kind of talking about. Connected both in teams and in data, as we've just said, but even more specifically in the middle there, connected workflows, which is the area that I want to kind of highlight in today's webinar and talk a little bit more about some of these tools. Okay. So when we're talking about Autodesk Build, Autodesk Build, if you're not aware, is part of a larger sort of platform of tools. Okay, it's a portion of a larger platform, and the key part to be aware of here is that it is now a unified platform of common data and a common data environment. Okay, so the key there is to know that all of the data, all of the information that is within an Autodesk Build project is connected, is shareable, it is accessible through different means, and is not having to be copied and duplicated out as it has been or has been in the past. Okay. When we delve a bit further into Autodesk Build, these are some of the areas that I want to talk about. And on the screen, you can see there on this slide the depth of Build's capabilities. Okay, so there's a number of, multitude of different tool sets and workflows there. Okay, these highlighted ones at the top are the main areas and the main features that I'm going to run through on today's webinar. Okay, so we're going to have a look at doc management and document control. We're going to have a little bit of a look at cost management and some of those tools. Some of you may not have delved into that area. And again, this is probably one of those areas that's being developed, still being developed, and workflows are still being added in that area. But there is still some good things that you can leverage from in that part of Build and that part of the construction cloud. So we'll have a look at that, some of those features. We'll have a look at project management, all about those RFI and submittal workflows. We'll look at quality quickly and quality planning, etc. We'll have a little bit of a look at safety, and then we'll talk a little bit about project closeout. So things like commissioning and turnover, etc. Okay. The other thing I want to just make mention of here as well in this next slide is PlanGrid. Okay, so for those of you who are familiar with PlanGrid, you'll be aware of this. For those that are not, be aware that PlanGrid is the mobile portion of, or the mobile piece of the puzzle, if you like. Okay, so PlanGrid allows you to connect that data and all of that information from your build and from your construction cloud project out into the field, basically. So things like your drawings, your issues and tasks, reports, some of those connected workflows, the main ones that we talk about, like submittals and RFIs, those sort of workflows, as well as things like photos and turnover, commissionings, and things like that. Okay, so these are some of the areas that you can access through the PlanGrid app. If you're using a mobile device like a tablet or a phone, you can connect your project directly through the PlanGrid app and access all of that information. And it's a two-way, mostly a two-way sort of a street, if you like. So a lot of that data can be accessed through PlanGrid, but also updated and then pushed back into the project. Okay. All right. We're going to talk, break it up into those sections now that I want to talk about. Streamlined document management. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about document control, document versioning, and document approvals. Okay. So firstly, document control. Okay. The document control portion of Autodesk Build ensures you have the right information in the right hands. Okay, so keeping project teams in sync and on track. You have the ability to control the flow of information. Okay, so you've got permissioning tools that you can access to control who sees and when they see that information that's being issued through the project. So as a project manager or a project admin, you can control those permissioning through the project settings. Okay, you can customize that. You can also customize those sharing options as well. And you can also customize and create folders for that structured process as well. So not just in Docs, but elsewhere in the project, you can build those folder structures. So for example, you can do things like if you're following, and something that we recommend as well, if you're following like the ISO, something like the ISO framework of folder structure, you can replicate that within your build project, and then you can have those folder structures in there so that the teams are working to that standard. Okay. Document versioning. Okay, so another big part of the document control area for Build. So you can instantly distribute the latest drawings and documents and drawings. You can view previous versions of documents and drawing models. Okay, and keep track of those. You can also compare sheets or versions to quickly understand the changes as well. Okay, so there is a pretty neat compare tool in there. It's similar to the tools that have been there previously. So some of you on the call that might be familiar with older BIM 360 projects, you know, there were some compare tools in there at different stages. So this compare tool within the new Autodesk Build just continues on, develops on from that tool, but there's some extra features in there as well that allows you to mark that up. Okay. Document approvals, okay, as well. So this allows you to control and automate the review and the distribution of that project information, like the drawings and the models, and as well as other documents. Okay, so be aware that you can customize and automate the distribution as well. There's templates and things that you can start to create as well, so that you can not only use them on one project, but you can use them across the board on other projects as well to start to get some consistencies in the way that things are delivered. Okay. You can review and comment as well, as I'm sure most of you are probably aware of that. You know, those sort of commenting tools have been in there for a while, but it works seamlessly with it in Build now as well, so that you can share that across the project team. Okay, and then anyone with the permissions can upload and share the project files to the team as well. Okay, so there's an area for that. All right, the next section I want to look at and talk quickly about is the project management side of things. Okay, so specifically here, I want to take a look at things like the RFIs, submittals, meeting minutes, and the daily reports. There's another area that's somewhat newer to the Build tool set as well, and that is the project progress tracking. So within the home screen of your Build project, you should now see that there is a project progress tracking portion, as well as other shortcuts to things within that home screen as well. But that's probably the main one to highlight, is the progress tracking. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving. Okay. So RFIs, obviously that is a major, RFIs are a major part or a major workflow in construction projects. So Autodesk Build allows you to seamlessly manage that workflow. Okay, and this is one of the areas specifically where I mentioned PlanGrid earlier, the mobile side of things. So this is just one of those specific areas where that comes into play. You can see on the screenshot there, there's a example of like the mobile screen. So there's the user interface online of your Autodesk Build, specifically within the RFI section, but then there's also a screenshot of the mobile device. Okay, so you can actively connect those two so that you can access this information and communicate across from one to the other. Okay, so the RFIs, again, a big area, as I said, big workflow of any construction project. So the tools that are in there in Build allow you to manage that quite well. You can streamline the workflow. You can elevate issues. Users can connect in the field, and they can link to markups and things like that, and make comments, replies, and push those back through. Project management and cost management is linked in there also. So just be aware that you can compile a robust audit trail at the end of the day, okay, which is obviously the main idea, okay, and it's all captured within the project. Okay, submittals, obviously another big area as well, another big workflow, and again where PlanGrid and the mobile side comes into play too. So you can create these submittals, and then you can log those submittal logs can be created and tracked. Okay, you can customize as well. So there is some level of customization if you've got some specific requirements for your project as well. And again, that's an area where you can then pull that out into a template to be used on future projects. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about, I've mentioned templates a little bit already. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly, but be aware that these are some of the areas where you can fill out some of those custom fields and create in templates from those. Okay. Again, with the permissions and whatnot, you can ensure that the necessary team members have the opportunity to review these submittals. Okay, it keeps all the critical stakeholders updated, obviously. Okay, and accessing submittals when and where you need them by viewing them on the mobile side is where the PlanGrid, as I said, app comes into play. Okay, you can filter, you can sort and filter on the app. It's quite detailed. You've got quite a good flexible tool set on the mobile interface, which allows you to sort and filter through those items. Okay. Keeping the submittals top of mind and tracking them as they're assigned or closed, etc., is obviously the major goal, and that's what you can do with the tool set in here connected through. Meeting minutes, just quickly as well, is another area too that you can start to track and also access from other devices. Okay, so if there's meetings that you create through the Build interface, okay, and it's a good idea to do that. If you're not aware, you can create meetings for your project directly through the Autodesk Build interface. Okay, as you can see on the screen, that you can schedule them rather than potentially using other software to manage those meetings. You can do it directly through the Build project. Again, keeping more of that project data, in this one location is the main goal. Okay, so setting up those meetings, you can take the meeting minutes, you can capture all of that, and then it's kept there as a tracking and an audit system for the project moving forward. Daily reports as well is another area that you can start to access as well. Okay, so there's some strong, and this is an area that's being developed too as we speak, but those daily, those reporting options or features that you have allow you to, or allow other managers, even say, for example, of the project, to be able to see what's going on at any point in time throughout the project. All right, let's switch over and have a look at a little bit of the cost management now. Okay, so again, this might be an area that you may not have delved into in too much detail at this stage. In our experience, it's still a relatively kind of a new area, in that what I mean by that is a new area in terms of our customers using it through Build, but there are some really good tools starting to come through now that you can start to leverage for the cost management side of things. So the things we'll quickly run through here on the slides is the budget creation and contract administration, change orders, cost forecasting, and payment applications. So let's have a quick run through these slides. We won't spend too long on this, but in terms of budget creation and contract administration, you can create or import those budgets through into Build from other sources. Okay, you can create those contracts with flexibility. You can customize those as well. Okay, so you do have the ability in there to create and set them up, and then again use them as templates moving forward. Okay, change orders, clear accountability to streamline those change order workflows. Okay, you have the ability to understand the origin of the change order. You can keep the budget balanced, for example. You can create and send the owner or supplier change orders. And then once again, you can customize those workflow rules. Okay, so there's some rule sets in there that you can start to set up. Payment applications and expenses, I say, so this is another area that you can leverage, okay, as part of the cost management side of things in Build. You can create and manage those applications. Looking at the interface here on the screen, you can see, you can set up those expenditures and you can track those, and you can follow them through the different stages as well, and log those expenses, for example, as an example. Okay. And cost forecasting, again, nothing sort of too crazy here. Just be aware that you have the ability to do that within the tool set here, to stay on top of some of those changes, and quickly making adjustments to suit. Okay, and understanding how that budget, understanding how that impacts the overall budget is obviously the key thing. Okay, so that's some of the areas there. Okay, if you've got more questions around this side of it, obviously, reach out. We can run through some of these in more detail at a later date, but just be aware that if you haven't looked at some of these tools, then maybe you can start to investigate some of these a bit further. Okay. All right, we're just going to switch over into the quality management side of things. Okay, so what I want to look at here is talk about the quality planning, quality assurance and quality control tools, the issue management, and also a little bit about punch lists. Okay, so quality planning. Okay, you can minimize rework and mistakes. Okay, obviously not telling you anything you don't know there, but with these tools, it allows you to do that. Okay, with this quality planning, so you can leverage standardized checklists and those templates to support that proactive approach. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Creating those sort of templates for forms, for checklists, for other documents as such. Okay, being able to create some of these and be able to use and leverage them on future projects is going to save heaps of time, right? And that's the whole idea. Efficiency, trying to not rework. Okay, in some of these areas, there's also automatic issue creations as well for non-conforming checklists. Okay. Next slide. So quality assurance and quality control. Okay, so you have the ability to resolve issues. Okay, you can log the issues and assign them to owners. Okay, and those owners, again, having a look at that screen capture there with the mobile example as well. Those owners of those issues, or assigned owners of those issues, have the ability to access those and reply to them in different locations or on mobile devices, etc. Okay, so it's all kind of connected in and tracked through. Okay, and you can track that status as it goes through the different stages as well. Okay, on the mobile side as well, as you can see there, it's noted, which is probably important to mention, that you can add things like photos as well as comments to resolve problems. Okay, so if you've got a mobile phone, obviously a user on the field can obviously take photos and upload them straight into the app, which then pushes them straight into the project. Okay, for tracking. So issue management is a fairly big thing as well. So this is an area that's managed quite well in Autodesk Build now. Okay, there's a lot of tools in there that allow you to keep track of your issue management moving forward, and it's all centralized. Okay, so again, coming back to that, buzzword or buzz phrase, single source of truth. This is where it really does come into play, right? Not having different information captured in different areas and different replies and answers in different formats that are not captured together. Using this workflow with the issue management allows it to all be captured in the one place and pulled together. Okay, so you can create, view and edit those issues in a unified issue log. Okay, you can come back and revisit those logs at any point in time as well, so that if there are some discrepancies that can be resolved. Okay, you can link issues to meeting minutes as well, which is another key thing there. Okay, when you need to elevate things like RFIs, for example, they can be linked. If there was a mention of that in a meeting minute, for example, you can link it together. Okay, to make it a bit clearer. Okay, The team is updated or kept up to date with those reports as well. Okay, and all of the, again, depending on the permissions, all of the project stakeholders can have access and review that. Okay, to keep on top of it. So the key item there, I guess, takeaway is the ability to track the information that you need, right? And to be able to customize, things like issue categories, types, and root causes. Okay, customize those fields. Also with the issue management here, just to highlight that you can collect the information you need and add it into those customized issues. So that screenshot is just giving you a bit of an example of categories and types, things like status, etc. You can customize up to say how is it going to be displayed to a certain extent, okay, to suit your project needs. Punch lists as well. I'll just quickly mention this. You have the ability to create those fix errors and things like that on to-do lists, basically, I guess is what we're talking about here. If there's inspection notes and things like that, and forms that have been created, they can be added in. The reports can share that, or they can just be set up as a list that is either actioned or not. Okay. All right, let's keep moving. Let's talk a little bit now about project closeout. Okay, so what I want to talk about here is things around commissioning, turnover of documentation, warranty management, final completion, and as-built survey. These are some of the areas in terms of project closeout that you can start to access tools for managing through Build. So if we talking about commissioning, we can reduce the amount of heavy lifting to close out a project successfully. Because all of that data, we're talking about a unified platform and a single source of truth, et cetera, because all of that data, all of that information is in the one location, we have the ability to capture all of that and push it back out at the end of the day, at the end of the project, or at different milestones, for example. Okay, you can deliver efficient and organized closeout documentation as well, satisfying clients' needs as well as others within the project and within the project stakeholders. You can access that asset data from the field during commissioning as well, and you can reduce the building maintenance risks and quickly resolve asset defects through these tools. Okay, so following on, further to that, in terms of turning over that documentation, as I said, you can generate accurate, comprehensive turnover documentation with basically a single click. Okay, all of that, because all of that information and that data is captured within the project. You can easily bundle it up and turn that information over and hand it over at the end or at milestones. Okay, easily downloadable from to whoever you've sent it to. Those data records can create, if required, a hard copy of the project. Okay. You can leverage that construction data in operations as well. So, moving forward into the operation of the project, this data can start to help and assist with that moving forward into the life cycle of the actual building performance. Okay, once it's actually built. All right. Talking a little bit about the unified architecture of Build. Okay, some of those sort of key areas there that we've sort of spoken about, we'll just reiterate. Having a unified framework, that's the key thing here, I guess, or one of the key takeaways is that, more and more it's becoming, because it is a unified platform, it's becoming the fact that you can access all of the data that you need in the one spot, rather than having, going back to talking about those data silos that we mentioned earlier, not having to pull information from different sources and potentially miss stuff, for example, because this is a unified framework and becoming more and more a unified framework and platform. There is that ability to capture all of that more easily, okay, and not miss anything. Built for execution and built for scale. So, just to say that as we said, as we know, it is continuing to develop this technology. So it is built to develop and go further. Okay, and truly mobile native now with the addition of PlanGrid into the mix. Okay, it is a truly connected and truly mobile workflow where required. Okay. The power of this single platform, I guess, is in these three things: unified data, insight, and the admin side of things as well at an enterprise level. So in terms of unified data, just to reiterate, these are the areas, things like your drawings and your models, as well as other documents, photos, videos, etc. Okay, this is some of the information that you can collect throughout that entire life cycle of the project. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the insight tools as well here within Autodesk Build. Okay, so I just want to quickly run through dashboards, reports, something called Construction IQ, and then the data connector. Okay, so dashboards give you a holistic view of the project. Okay, so this is a screenshot of, I mentioned it earlier, the home screen when you're in your build. You can see there in the middle, for example, as well, there's an example of the project progress tracking as well. So when you create milestones or issue dates for the project, you can keep track of them there in a summary here on this home screen. Okay, amongst other things as well, you can analyze data for that single project or even across multiple projects to get a broader view, right, of company-wide performance. Assigned work as well. You can build actionable items, daily tasks, etc. As it's showing there, and you can assign those to people, to users. Okay. And then obviously at the end of the day, make better informed decisions and business decisions across all of your projects in terms of how they're performing with these dashboards. Okay. Reports, probably don't need to spend too long on this one. We've talked a little bit already about the reports, but again, just be aware that they are configurable, and you can automate certain areas of the reporting to happen at different increments. Okay, automatically. You can schedule them to be shared as well, either one time or as a recurring basis, and not only customize how they're being shared, but also the fields within the report as well. Okay, and how they're filtered. So the data connector is just one to mention here as well, being able to quickly add extra project data from all projects and workflows and automate the process with schedule extraction. So in terms of extracting project data for use in other business tools, you have the ability to, there are some abilities here that you can leverage to export that data or extract that data. Okay, and again, there's templates that you can create to save you time on future projects as well. Okay. Okay, so Construction IQ, this is just a little bit, again, in terms of the insights in the insights area of the build or on the Construction Cloud platform. This is where you can start to get into things like machine learning. So this is probably more of an advanced area that maybe you wouldn't be delving into potentially early on in the piece. Maybe you are at that level, but just be aware that this is where you start to get in the area of being able to scan projects, using that machine learning to scan projects across the board to identify high risks and design errors and common things like that, common errors areas. Okay, you can quickly identify those items that then need the attention. Okay, so all about viewing risk and quality. It all ties back into the quality and safety side of the project management as well. Okay, so just be aware that there are some tool sets coming into play and being developed as we speak for this side of things as well. So if that's an area that you are interested in, again, you can reach out. We can go through this in more detail, in the future. Okay, so be aware that with that, with this project level and cross-project data, for that matter, analysis, you've got that potential of risk prevention, which is obviously always a good thing. All right, talking a little bit about product navigation. Okay, because this is now a unified platform, you do have the ability to navigate through to other areas of your project fairly seamlessly, right? So if you're needing to jump over into things like BIM Collaborate, into the quantify areas, or even the cost areas, for example, you've got it all there on your side panel. Okay, the navigation buttons are fairly user friendly now within Build. It all works fairly well and seamlessly, and you can connect to those areas. You can also connect to some of those common tools across all of the segments. Okay, they will be accessible. Things like sheets and issues, for example, will be accessible through the different modules. Okay, probably to note here some of the key talking points, particularly for existing or even previous PlanGrid and BIM 360 customers. Okay, some of those key talking points are the new easy navigation between those integrated workflows, which was not available previously in the traditional PlanGrid product line. Quick access to integrated workflows during design, plan, construct, and operate. Fast access to project and account administration in a single dropdown. And lastly, a familiar BIM 360 user interface for both PlanGrid and BIM 360 users. Okay. So taking that a little bit further in terms of that navigation, as you can see here, when you're in a build, when you're signed into the construction cloud and you are in a build project, at the top you can easily switch between those other projects, but not only other build or construction cloud projects, but even some of those older potentially BIM 360 or even PlanGrid projects, if that's what you're using as well. So you can switch between those older projects. It's all unified in as well. Okay. All right. So hopefully that's giving you a bit of insight, if you weren't already aware, into some of those workflows that are available and are becoming available with Autodesk Build, and with the mobile side and PlanGrid. Okay, so I hope that's been informative for you guys. I will now leave some time for some questions. Okay, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to chuck them into the Q&A. I'll take a quick moment now just to double check, okay, if we do have any. And be aware that also, if you do have other questions that you think of later after this webinar, please, as I said, feel free to reach out. Because we've got a couple of questions here. What makes using Autodesk capabilities and workflows as the only solution over a lot of other connected solutions like Fieldwire, Cupix, Derofus, and Revitsto? Okay, so it's a good question, and it's obviously one that's going to come up quite a lot with many customers that are obviously already using a lot of other software. I guess probably we could talk about that in a fair amount of detail. For me, probably the thing to note just here now today, or the thing that sort of is highlighted for me, is the ability to, coming back to that, and I'll use that buzzword again, that single source of truth, right? Being able to collaborate, collate, and then access all of that data in the one location, rather than having to pull it out from some of these other programs. Yes, these other programs are very powerful. I'm not denying that for 1 minute. But if there is an ability to become more efficient and save time and be able to do some and leverage some of those workflows within the one environment, then that's going to be one of the benefits that I think is worth highlighting. Okay, so there's another question here. Let's see if there's a bit of a longer one. Let's see if we can break this down, and if not, answer some of it, if not all of it, at the moment. So using all AACC and build functions would require each stakeholder to have a certain level of subscription or seat privilege. Not all site foremen, CWs, etc., would be thought of to have this license. Does this suggest a whole change management workflow and software, unless not already implemented? Okay, so again, another great question. I guess the answer, there's multiple answers to that. The answer is kind of yes and no in a sense, in a short answer. Yes, you will need to have, or users will need to have, some level of access. Okay, certain areas of the tool do require even separate licenses as well. Okay, so be aware that anyone that's invited into a build project will have general access through the project. Okay, so things like, you know, people that are on site, if they are invited to the project, they can then jump in and access most of the information in there. When you start to get into things like sharing models and specific, you know, Revit workflows and Revit models and working from them live, that's where you get into things like the BIM Collaborate Pro side of the things. That is some of the areas, for example, where you do actually need to have, each user needs to bring their own separate license or subscription for those tool sets to be able to use and those workflows. Okay, but in terms of accessing information in the project, if documents are shared, if, you know, most of that is accessible for those that are just invited into the project and then given that permission membership, that permission settings, okay, from the project managers. So coming to the, I guess, the root of that question, you know, does it suggest a whole change management of workflow and softwares? Well, I guess to a certain degree, yes. Like anything, you know, there is going to need to be a change to a certain degree, a change of mindset, you know, and management of that workflow. Some of the areas, you know, some users will already be doing. It just might be obviously using a different tool. So I guess, yeah, good question. But hopefully that's helped to answer that to at least in some part. All right. I don't think there's any more questions coming through now at this stage. So with that, I will look to end the webinar here. Okay. Thanks very much, guys, for your attendance today. Quickly, just please be aware that if you are interested in future events and future webinars like this, that's the site on the screen there that you can visit, a2ktechnologies.com.au/events. Through there, you can see those upcoming dates of webinars and workshops, etc. Okay. And lastly, as I said, if you do need more information or you have some further questions that you weren't able to or think of and they come later, please feel free to reach out. That's the best contact there is on the screen, info@a2ktechnologies.com.au, unless you have another, you know, avenue that you can go through. But that's the best one to hit up. So please feel free to do that. And with that, I'll just say thank you again. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.